So, hello everyone. So, I'm breaking my programming to just do this quick review and provide those who are interested in this book because I think it's really important to show you the table of contents so that you can decide whether you want to invest in getting those books. Now, the first thing that I will say is that this first book that I'm going to show, the Sibyl, the first prophetess of Mami Wata. This is actually a chapter in her larger book that's here, the first volume, Mami Wata. So if you do not want to buy this book, I ended up buying this book because it was the first one that I found, but basically all of this material is also included in this book. I think because she did this book as a later date for her entire thesis, and this one was is basically part of that. So I'm gonna go over some of the things that I wanted to show you in there that I think you will find very interesting. And once we get to that section in this larger book, I'm just gonna skip over it. So of course I'll show you what the book looks like, the Sibyls, and this is really a basic background in terms of some evidence of the presence of Africans in what becomes later on the European space, what is now known as Europe. So, on the first page, you just have the title. You have her association, which is Mami Wata Healer Society of North America, Incorporated, based in Georgia. And then the book was published in 2007. Okay, so self-publish. And this is what we have on the first page. So I know some of the illustrations are copyrighted, so I will just show you what I can show you for educational purposes, of course. And of course, I'm going to read some of the passages that I think are really important. So this particular book does not have a table of content, unlike the others, but let me just read you this little passage that says, the great Sibyl divine oracles of the ancestors and God. Webster's dictionary defined the Sibyl as a female prophet or a woman able to utter the oracles and prophecies of a god, or a woman who can foretell the future. Conversely, under the bitter Hebrew patriarch, the Sibyls are condemned in the Bible as Belatin Ob, meaning evil serpent spirits or mistress of the python. So this is kind of giving you the context also to what she's meaning by the term Sibyl and how she uses it throughout the book. So the first part deals with the Sibyls, the first prophetesses of Mami. That's the first part. Here was important. This is one of the first pictures that you see. It's basically a medieval Roman catacomb illustration. So this what is great is that all of her illustration will have sources. I think it was important for you to see that some of those Romans artwork had actually African people in them. And she was going to go in detail, and for all of the artwork illustration that she found, she puts all of the sources. So for those who like to do some additional research, you can even go and check the sources. Some of them are images from different museums around the globe, notably in the UK. Then here it goes like the first Genesis, when the God Goddess spoke through the African women. So there she goes into giving you a background, a historical background. Second chapter, a portion is the sacerdotal matriarchs of the Sibyl. So here it goes on to say, from Turkish already she was there. She refers to the Queen of Sheba, that was also a Sibyl. So this is from her perspective. And of course, as she says, she's finding a lot of illustration to give you her account, but also some evidence that she's found depicting the presence. Here is the Black Amazons in defense of mother right. So really diving into the matriarchal culture and how the war happened, and how women got into the war and the reasons why. Okay, the Black Amazons. Just showing. So there's a lot of illustration throughout all of her books that will enable you to really set images and faces to what you're reading. Then she goes on to talking about the Sibyl's influence in ancient Rome and how they were giving prophecies, and leaders will come to them to know what would happen, to ask for to be in their good graces. And then thereafter that there came the time when division in the Holy Empire, the matriarchal revolt. So she goes on to talk about that. I'm not gonna, this is really just to give you an idea of what you're investing in if you're buying this book. Historical Sibyl, Priestess of Mami. Here she goes into giving you images of who they were in different cultures. Here she talks about when the Sibyl were ended, when they disappeared, the final destruction of the Sibyl prophecies, and the dilemma of Rome and the Papal Church. As she said, it's really the Roman Church that brought them down and that advances them from and then at the end, this I'm going to read a little bit because it says, the broken promises, Sibyl goddess curses Rome. So, no, I'll leave this. So at the end, when they were basically being losing, they basically cursed Rome, and we all know that Rome ended up, an empire just broke down as well. Then she ties in into, enslaved, persecuted priestesses in Rome. So once they were dethroned, they were basically enslaved. So there's a whole bunch of history about that, the persecution. They were demonized. And then at the end of the book, so you have this portion which is basically about 100 pages. And then the rest of the book is basically all of her notes and illustrations and references. So you can dive into it. So there's a lot of illustration I'm not going to show just because they're copyrights and because it will be better for you to enjoy it when you get it. But it's really well researched. I think whether you agree with her perspective and her experiences, you'll definitely have enough to get going and researching yourself and finding things out. So that's it for the small book. Now turning to the Mami Wata book. Again, I'm going to show you first the table of content, and excuse because this book has a lot of wear and tear, and that's when we love the book. So the first page, Mami Wata, the title, her name, volume 1. This is the 3rd edition, and this was printed in 2007. Yes, okay. And so we'll go straight to the table of content. Table of content, so part 1, Mami Wata in the ancient world, mythology, the origin, Isis, divine wisdom. So she's tying it with Egypt. Mami Wata throughout ancient world. Mami Wata as a sacred serpent, so the reptilians as well. Ancient images of Mami Wata, so illustrations. Part 2, Mami, original Vatican seat of sacerdotal power in Rome. Again, this is part of the hegemony when they ruled that part of Europe. So the Temple of Mami, the Queen Mothers, the Second Ethiopia, the Sibyl, first holy priestesses, prophetesses of Mami, the Black Amazons in defense of mother right, the Priestess of Mami, the images of ancient Sibyl in Vatican and elsewhere, the Vatican papal wars against Mami. And then part 3 goes into Mami Wata in the New World. It is in the blood. So that's her personal journey of ancestral resurrection. Then here she goes into quoted George Abbott, walking with the spiritual master, that's the person who initiated her. Magical blend, interview with the master, images of Mami Wata in Togo, where she had her initiation. Necessary bumps on the journey, coming home. So basically explaining her journey from America to Togo and back, and reconnecting with her roots. Part 4, Mami Wata, Vodun in America. So here she gives the origin, she talks about the origin of the religion in America, early presence in America, America's war on Voodoo religion, the Dahomey, not the original home of Voodoo, official account of Dahomey royal lineage, and then the unofficial account, the mythological origin of Dahomey name, Mami Sibyl in America, the mermaid survival in African American folklore, and the neglect of the diaspora soul. And then we have part 5, religious persecution of Africans in America. She goes about a whole bunch, some of the things that we already know, some we didn't. Part 6, bringing the gods home. Mami Wata Vodun in America. What this new association believes. And part 7, Chamba, divine slave, slaves of diaspora. So here is that portion of the book. It's African paying their karmic due. So she has a lot of concept in there. As I stated, I'm not referencing every single part of this book. There are lots of items that resonate with me that are similar to my tradition. However, there's also a lot of things that I don't agree with. And as with any book, you should always use your discernment. And what is great about this book is because if you are not clear or disagree with something, you have references to go and dig deeper if you want to. So let's go check out a few portions of this particular book. Here, as I mentioned, I briefly told you, she explained here why she had to self-publish, or she had to choose to self-publish. I can put a few paragraphs, but you can stop, pause the video, and read at your own leisure. Okay, I'm just going to leave these 2 pages that will give you enough for you to know what this book is about. But definitely it's a worthy investment to reconnect. So here actually it's interesting, this says more than hoodoo magic. It's more than hoodoo magic. Then you have the preface. Let me find this. I have specific things. Then she talks about Mami Wata in Africa, and of course this is from the Ewe tradition from Togo. Here you have Mami Wata throughout the ancient world. She goes on just different pictures of different places that she shows. I don't want to show too many pictures because you should get that for you. And then here's like Mamisi birthing temples of the Sibyls, and she explained the temples throughout the ancient world, how they were, what was going on in there. She also goes to India and showing Mami as a sacred serpent. We can see this image that was later taken into Hinduism and changed. Just 1 second, I'll let you look at this image while I... Okay, then let's go here. Then part 2 talks about Mami Wata, original Vatican seat of sacerdotal power in Rome. So that's the second part of the book. This part is also related to what we've seen earlier. What we've seen earlier with the smaller book. I'm basically gonna skip through this information because a lot of it is in the earlier book. But it has also illustration. It has pictures from Team Book 2, Africa. Then she goes into cultural voltairism, and she explained how a lot of these pictures that you can see here have been actually whitewash. So for example, if you look here, you have the original, and then you have the whitewash statues. And again, at the end, you'll have all the sources that shows that the black statue predates the white ones. So you can go check that out. And those are like even in in different museums. So it's not like she's making the stuff up or anything like that. The black goddesses in ancient India, rare images of Mami. So she goes into that. The presence in India, in ancient India. This is also, it was interesting to show because I've seen this somewhere else and I've used this as inspiration for my natural hair cards. What you see clearly, this is a female head of the Buddha with kinky hair. And maybe we can just read quickly, because she says here, the logo themed the masculine with the sun and the Taurus. His followers first taught that he was born from the womb of Mahamaya, Mami. The Brahmin later changed this to Immaculate Conception. Few are aware that there were 10, some say 14 incarnations of the Buddha, and only one is portrayed in the West. Usually when you in America or the West, you will only see the Buddha with the Asian feel, which is not. So in India, she also shows a couple of other pictures. She shows a picture of Mami in that context. Here then she talks about the original pre-Hindu African Kali, and I think that's an interesting part of the research to read. And she has some pictures also underneath. She's talking about, Ramakrishna, child of Mami Kali. So it's interesting, just a couple of sentences here when she says, often called a Hindu god, Mami Kali predates Hinduism and is part of the ancient pantheon of the Mami Watas, worshipped by the Ethiopians, Kushite, and Elanite Indians. Known as Averidan, the Mami serpent deity of death and transformation is often blackened and demonized as a destructive force. Additionally, Vodou gods on the whole are portrayed in the West as primitive and incapable of a higher mystical and transformative order. So, yeah, she doesn't leave any stone unturned. Here she has Kundram Mulavar, which is a black deity later on incorporated in the Hindu pantheon. And here you have, this is the picture you find in the small book. So we're going to go and skip ahead because all of this part is going to be that small book. So then we head to part 3, Mami Wata in the New World. And so here I can show you the Mami Wata Sibyls in America and the organization that they have now, how they are organized now, what they are doing, the religious persecution of Africans in America. So that's another chapter. Then the re-education, the truth about Yeve Mami Wata Vodun. So re-educating the diaspora. The New World, Vodun, and Christian syncretism, who borrowed from whom. And she goes into that. Then, for example, here we can see commonly, of course, the Black Madonna, who is later on whitewash. So, and this is not new information. This is just she just incorporated that in there. That is already well known. Then what else? And then here you have contemporary images and illustration of Mami Wata, and this part is all full of illustration, pictures, so forth and so on, diagram, her own initiation and things like that. Okay. And then part 2. So part 2 is about let's go and see the table of contents. So again, this is the front page. Okay, her logo. Okay, publication date 2007. Okay, table of contents. Okay, so this is volume 2, part 8, Alpha God of Destiny. So, description of the universe and the Away cosmology. So, it's from the Away tradition. Alpha, or how to Alpha do destiny, came to human, ancient origin of Alpha, which is divination, the soul, sexuality, death and rebirth, bi and multiracial ancestry, gay, lesbian, transgender, sexual orientation, soul evolution, initiation as gay, lesbian, transgendered, and word of caution. So all of this is really from the Away tradition that she was initiated to. Part 9, Mami patron deities. She goes into Awusa as Tiche, black goddess of fate and luck. Tiche as Vasanti in ancient India, attribute of Awusa, and Nike, the black goddess of success and fortune. So all okay, and then other attributes of Densu, Yensu. Okay, and then here, part 10, Mami devotees in America, African ancestors and spirit, 3 authors of African American culture. Mami C. Keliama Mon, and Mami C. Ngel Tayo PhD, and Mami C. Wambua Maoga. So those are probably the priestesses, some high priestesses or something. So part 8, I just picked a few things to show you. Here, the brief description of the universe according to the Away cosmology, how they talk about how the universe was created. You know, every tradition has to establish their system of belief, and oftentimes it goes through discussing how the world was created and the place that we have. Here I find interesting because somebody asked about Papa Legba. Here from the Away tradition, it states there's a section on Legba, guardian of divine information highway, and she goes on the second page. I just wanted to pinpoint one thing that may be helpful. As I said, this is from the Away tradition. Like I mentioned, I don't prescribe everything in the book, but I thought it would be interesting for some of you. The sacred role of Legba, and here she says Legba, as the master of human suffering, might bring about sudden misfortune and conflict. However, it is specific and serves to diminish the ego and humble the human character. Also, on the other page, it basically states that he was he is the gatekeeper from... Okay, it's right here, sorry. So, as messenger of the god and possessor of the faith and destiny of human, Legba garners the most political and spiritual powerful position, and thus the most envious place in the Mami Wata pantheon. When he is appeased, he will transmit the messages of the gods clearly. If offended, or if the person's character is corrupt, evil, or whatever, avoiding some major responsibility, Legba or she might mistranslate an important message, thereby wreaking havoc, misery, and even doom for the receiver, family, or the nation. For this reason, Legba is known to be an instigator of war, accident, argument, and overall distension, especially if not appeased or if forgotten about during ceremonial ritual. For this reason, Legba has often been misequated with the Christian Satan. However, the two are aesthetically different in both function and cosmic design as two principal forces that can be described. This is actually not the passage I wanted to read. So this is the things I do not believe on, and that is not my experience. But it says, because each pantheon of voodoo gods are repleted with their own language and sacred pathway, a multitude of routes exist for them and the ancestors to send messages to and from the various regions in which they reside. For this reason, it is necessary to appoint a traffic guard and spiritual linguist who can ascertain and correctly transmit their messages. So this is Legba, Garden of Divine Information Highway. So, and I'm sure you can find more things about Papa Legba if you're inclined to do that, but or just take things with a grain of salt and just be mindful of which tradition you are reading things from. Here, ancestral rebirth, same race, ethnic groups, and gender. I thought it was interesting to point that out as she was aborting this aspect. Let's see. There was something I wanted to read here, but I think you can pause and read it at later. Yes, this is the part that says, central to Ewe theology is the strong and proven reality of ancestral rebirth, meaning that the soto of an ancestor can return with the ori of a family member at birth, because it is in reality one's own biological ancestors who carry the chez, spiritual power of the family. It is firmly believed by the Ewe that one is always reborn into the same race, ethnic group, gender, and family bloodlines, from which one has originally assigned when one's first ancestors and Lido entered into the world at the dawn of human creation. And of course, right above it says there's no new souls are being born. Everything was already created. And she goes into multiracial ancestry in Afa, saying basically that in Ewe cosmology, if one is born biracial, multiracial, or multi-ethnic, they will possess the racial ethnic characteristic or whichever blood lineage predominates from their immediate ancestors and should be honored. However, upon death or reincarnation, they will be rerouted or reborn back into their dominant root lineage from which their Lido and original soul was created. So it's just some perspective there to take in consideration and to assess for yourself. Here she talks about gay, lesbian, transgendered, etc. and Afa in Ewe cosmology. So she has a few pages on that. Then I thought it was interesting to talk about Nike, the black goddess of success and fortune. And here she is depicted, and this is the picture that you can find in Greek city, southern Italy. Exact location allegedly unknown. And it's just interesting how, they always say that African Americans like the Nike shoes. So there may be some spiritual truth under that, because by buying Nikes, you might be honoring Nike, the DS. Then she goes into Native Americans, and here she's wrote this small thing that says Black Diana Fletcher with Kiowa Nation, majority of non-African mixture in African Americans are Native Americans. So just interesting to kind of dive in that she goes into that. Then she goes into Mami's devotees having a say in America, so the role of the diaspora. She goes a few pages on that. She goes also provides more illustrations. So more illustrations, and then there was one more thing here that I need to share. Yes, and then she talks about African cultural and religious language survivals in America, and she has tables of correspondence between the Gula language and several languages in Africa, the Bini, Congo, Kikongo, and Yoruba, Ewe, and Fon. So there are a few tables of correspondence for that. If you're ever curious, especially if you want to research the Gula ethnic group in the United States, to learn more about them, I'll encourage you to do that as well. And finally, the last part of the book is basically all of the references of material she's used, so you can really dive into that and verify if you like, or dig even further than she did if you are inclined to do that. So I'll definitely tell you if you are really new to all of this and you have no idea what's going on, the $57 is totally worthy an investment, and for the wealth of information that you will get to review. And if you are inclined to go even further, then I will say to purchase volume 3. If you're someone who just want to have some preliminary information, then you can just purchase the small one, which is, I think it's like $20, and that will also give you a good introduction into this. So that was not a quick video, but I hope you enjoyed, and that will help you in making a decision. And I will see you in my next video. Oh, and if you do purchase it, let me know once you get it and you get to reading it, how you find that to be. Bye.